Hannah Wallace and welcome to FinextraTV. Kindly joining me today to speak off the back of Finastra's Banking as a Service research report is Margaret Franco, CMO of Finastra, and Craig Ramsay, Head of Innovation at HSBC. Hello to the both of you. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Hello, Hannah. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
Hello, Hannah. Nice to be here.
Really good to have you on and looking forward to touching on this topic today. BaaS, and I understand that Finastra has actually recently launched a research project into the banking as a service landscape, and it explores the underlying trends as well. So looking forward to hearing about those. So perhaps you could start by expanding on that and highlighting some of the key findings. Let's start there.
Happy to. So banking as a service is a super hot topic. I mean, we see in the press announcements, lots of companies making movements. I mean, there's definitely a hype curve that's happening. At the same time frame, Finastra is investing strategically in this space and in capabilities within this space. And when we looked at the market, we thought, wow, there's really not a good industry body of research which really helps characterize how big is the market, where are the profit pools in the market, and then also, what is it going to take for each of the participants to succeed? And banking as a service is pretty complicated because you've got many participants. You've got the providers, which are banks. And banks are very critical here because you can't offer banking without a bank. Mm-hmm. There are the enablers, like Finastra, which actually help to connect and enable these capabilities. And most importantly, there are the distributors, which are the corporates and the end consumers that are looking to consume banking services at the point of context, at the point when they're trying to make a transaction. And so that's really the framework of the study. And the first thing that we realized is that 85% of senior executives are working through a BaaS project, either currently or plan to within the next 12 to 18 months. So pretty critical data point there. So there's definitely movement in the BaaS space.
Thank you very much for setting the scene for us there, Margaret. Craig, I think you'll agree, some compelling figures there. So tell us, what does BaaS mean for a bank and in turn their end customers?
Thank you, and I think it's here and now. Banking as a service is definitely here and is definitely expanding. For customers and for the distributors, they have to think about the context that Margaret talked about. So what is the problem you're solving? And it's wider than just the financial service. It's actually a whole value chain, a whole experience. Get the experience right. And then we as banks have to think about how we embed ourselves, because actually people talk about embedded finance and banking as a service. I like the expression embedded finance, about how we embed our financial products in that experience. So for customers, get the experience right, make it great, make it easy. As banks then, you do that through having the right technology. And so think about your technology. Think also about the operational environment where that technology sits, and then think about how you can explain what embedded finance and banking as a service is, both internally and externally, to both the enablers and the distributors you're working with.
All right, so a few things to take into account there. So I think it's worth coming back to your findings, Margaret. Where did you identify then the most value then in the ecosystem? What about that?
So the first finding is we said, what is the size of the market? The size of the market is 7 trillion by 2030. That is huge. It's massive. So then decompose 7 trillion. Where will it come from? And where are the value pools? And most importantly, the use cases that are super critical. What we found is the predominant use case today are typically in retail banking. So think buy now, pay later. And just buy now, pay later, that's growing at 100% for the next 3 years. Now the emerging pool, which is probably the bigger pool moving forward, is in what we call small, medium enterprise lending, so SME lending. Now think about SME lending. It's a $250 billion marketplace, and it's growing at 30% for the next 3 to 5 years. So that's a very big emerging area where, which presents a huge opportunity.
Again, very compelling figures there, Margaret. Thank you very much. And so, Craig, run us through your banking as a service journey and where you're seeing key use cases and partnerships forming. What about that?
Thank you. And I think when we look at banking as a service, I think Margaret talked about the SMEs, the small and medium enterprises, and I think that's really an exciting place that's coming, because if we look at buy now, pay later, for a consumer, it's quite easy, but actually doing that for an SME is slightly more complex. And that leads to education. Education internally within banks, education with the enablers and distributors, and also education of the end customers who are consuming it. So education has been a really key element for us to focus on. Where are we seeing it? Well, we are really pleased to have announced a partnership with NetSuite last October, and we see that as a place where they, as an ERP software provider, they are helping businesses run their business by actually taking banking services and embedding them. That's actually really quite compelling. You could actually expand that to accountancy software packages, the likes of Intuit and Sage and others. And then you look at marketplaces and e-commerce platforms. There's plenty of places that you're going to see banking as a service develop in the future.
So watch this space, it's safe to say. Brilliant, looking forward to that. So Margaret, is there any final message you'd like to end on and any lessons banks watching today can take away?
Absolutely. So that was really the third part of the survey, is what is it going to take to succeed in this space? And what we found is for each of the participants, providers, enablers, as well as distributors, there are 3 keys to success. The first one is use case, use case, use case, defining specifically for the corporate customer, for the area that you're focused on, the use case that's needed. The second one is defining a clear monetization model to get there. And the third one is partnerships, finding the right partners with the skills and the capabilities that can allow you to scale. And as you look at the market in general, the pull is coming from the distributors. What we found is 60 to 70% of distributors are actively looking at putting banking into their contextual sales. And so because the pull is coming from the distributors, the biggest message is be the first mover advantage to really capitalize on the space.
I'm hearing you loud and clear, some very good advice there. And Craig, is there anything you'd like to add? How can banks be successful in BaaS?
So I think as a bank, you can be the provider, but it's how close to the distributors that you want to get. And the closer you get, actually the harder it is for the bank, but the greater the opportunity. And it's how you partner, both with the distributors and the enablers, and think very carefully about that journey and then execute. You've got to Margaret's point, play and be playing rather than spectating. So get on the field and kick the ball around and score a goal.
Brilliant. Well, thank you both so much for sharing your insights and advice as well there, and look forward to reflecting on that further down the line. But for now, we'll leave it there. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.